Today I'd like to direct your attention to a passage at the end of Mark chapter 2, verses 23 to 28. This is one of a couple of stories that Mark relates about conflict that Jesus got in with religious leaders and authorities in his time regarding how Jesus behaved on the Sabbath. Now remember, observing a Sabbath is very important to the Jewish people. It's one of the 10 commandments that God gave to Moses to give to the people. So it's an important concept. And in the early parts of the Bible, we hear a couple reasons why humanity is to take a day of rest every seventh day. In Genesis, we're told that at the end of God creating all the heavens and the earth and all the living things on the earth, that on the seventh day, God rested. And in the book of Exodus, which describes the enslavement of the people of Israel in Egypt and their deliverance under Moses, they are reminded in being taught of the importance of a Sabbath that you know what it's like to work unrelentingly 7 days a week, and that is not God's desire for you. But the seventh day is to be holy. It's to be a day of rest, not only for you, but for all of your servants and even your animals. So the concept of a Sabbath and keeping a Sabbath is very important. But like all kinds of rules, we can miss the forest for the trees, as the saying goes. And in Mark chapter 2, at the end of that, Jesus is going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, the disciples began to pluck heads of grain and to eat them. Now the Pharisees, who seemingly followed Jesus and the apostles around like a bunch of voracious paparazzi, are observing everything they do. So they're trailing them on the Sabbath. Why they're doing this instead of resting on the Sabbath with their own families is an interesting question to contemplate, isn't it? But anyway, they say, "Look, why are you doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" And he said to them, "Have you never read?" And he tells them a Bible story about when David and his companions were hungry and in need of food, and he entered the house of God where Abiathar was high priest and ate the bread of the presence, which wasn't lawful for any but the priest to eat, and he gave some to his companions. And that leads us to our verse for today, Mark 2:27. Then he said to them, "The Sabbath was made for humankind, and not humankind for the Sabbath." And what this means is all our religious rules, if you will, of which the Sabbath observance is an example, these were created by God for our benefit, for our welfare. And, we will work unrelentingly, many of us, unless we take a deliberate break. We can ask others to work unrelentingly. We can forget to step back and rest as God did. So the Sabbath was intended for rest, for worship, for renewal, and for relationship. It is created to help us. We are not created to serve it. I hope you find time for Sabbath rest each day and every week.